we're all over the world. I think we're all over the world with this. So it's wonderful and an honor and a privilege to kind of moderate what we're going to talk about, which is everything you need to know about impact investing, or maybe not everything, but we'll do our best to get as close to that as possible. And I'm Brett Packard, and I'm the CEO of the Packard Network. And basically what I've spent my adult life in roughly 30 years in 30 countries, lived in more than a handful of them. And what I do now is I grow leaders that grow leaders. And my legacy in those 30 countries there's leaders today that are still growing leaders. And that's what I do. And so that's why I'm honored to be on this program today, because this is a group of leaders. You're going to hear from two of them, and we're going to field some questions and talk about a really important subject that is much more than, I don't believe in the word buzzword. When you hear impact investing, I believe in impact, okay, and impacting the lives of real people. And I think you're going to hear a bit about that today. And so that's a little bit about me. You can read the rest later, but I'd like to do two. And at this event, just briefly, what you're going to have at the end of the 45 minutes roughly is you're going to understand why impact investments are important, why they're trending, why they're becoming very popular. I follow financial regulators around the world. And I can tell you that recently in Singapore, for example, there was a big event with asset managers, and the Monetary Authority of Singapore individual that was speaking at that spoke a lot about this particular subject to the asset managers in that part of the world. So, and we could just name a lot of other cases, but it's popular, it's trending. These investments based on past performance have better return rates than you might think. We can't guarantee the future, but you can kind of look at the past and make some assessments on anything at all. And I think you'd be surprised. They're also a way to diversify your risk, and they're a great way to invest in something that you're passionate about. You'll hear a lot about that in the coming minutes as well. So with that, I'm going to do two introductions. We've got Stephen Clark here, and Denisha Allen are joining me with this. And Stephen is the founder and CEO of the RTG Group, which is a for-profit social enterprise, basically changing the world. And it's you'll hear from Stephen in a couple of minutes. But the way that RTG is changing the world is through a new type and fairly unique type of giving model, where everyone wins more than they put in. And so you'll hear a bit about what that means in a moment. Stephen is a former pro athlete. It's ice hockey, and he's also he's been an advertising executive, an impact investor, a strategist, and an entrepreneur. And I can tell you, there's a huge following on LinkedIn platform of people that wait every morning for Stephen's views on life and the business world as an entrepreneur. So he's got a huge following, and his background and experience and knowledge, we're really pleased to have him here today. And he's basically focused on initiatives that amplifies the best of humanity through several diversity and inclusion advisory board engagements. I'm very happy to be here today. It's the Lunar New Year. Okay, so happy Lunar New Year to everybody. And it's also Black History Month, right? So those two events and this event, I couldn't be more happy to be here today. And I know Stephen would join me in that as well. And Denisha Allen is here as well. And Denisha was born and raised in Jamaica, and the great country of Jamaica. And she learned the value of hard work there, focused discipline. She moved to Canada, which is where she is right now, in 2009. So a little over a decade ago. And she had a dream, and her dream was impacting the community through her leadership and knowledge of finance. And my road crosses well with her. Is that I'm a former finance executive, and so we share a lot of the same passions as well. Denisha holds an MBA in finance and investment and brings a demonstrated experience in wealth management as well. So Denisha knows what she's talking about. She's passionate about impact investments, love the community, supporting, and she also supports, like Stephen, several diversity and inclusion advisory board engagements, and just countless other opportunities and initiatives in this particular space. So with all of that, I'm going to take a sip of water here, and I've introduced Stephen and Denisha. And Stephen, why don't you lead us off by telling the audience a bit about what exactly is impact investing, and how big is the space now?
Yeah, thanks, Brett. And thank you for that lovely introduction. Impact investing, I've been kind of involved in the space now full time for 6 years. Started to kind of build these new models around that, and I've watched it grow. There's a couple of different. The interesting thing about something in big growth, which is relatively new, is it's kind of still unknown. So we have a couple of different organizations that have kind of stepped up. One is called GIN, which is the Global Impact Investment Network. They're kind of one of the top organizations in the field. And you've got the International Financial Group, which has always been around. Those two, for example, and I'll tell you how interesting the impact investment space is. GIN predicts the space today at about $725 billion. So big growth, especially over the last 10 years. The IFC suggests that the impact investment space today is $2 trillion. So you've just got the two leading organizations there in the space that are so far, different. So that's where we are today. The growth is unprecedented, and you're going to get into as we talk more about why that is. But projections for me over the next 5 years, I mean, we're going to see a $5 to $10 trillion industry of massive people investing in projects that are doing good, and of course, still, as you mentioned, Brett, still delivering a solid return.
Yeah, and I think again, I mentioned that I follow regulators around the world, right? And because that's really where you learn. If you're in the finance industry, you're going to learn what's going on around the world, and I'm seeing this more and more on their agenda. I get copies of all their speeches, and in the speeches, they're talking about impact investing, right? So, you can read what you want in the newspaper, you can believe it or not believe it, right? But what Brett Packard's telling you is you can certainly believe what regulators are talking about, right? As well. Yeah. So I would agree with that. Denisha, good morning, good afternoon to you. Actually, I'm in a slightly different time zone, but tell us just briefly about the benefits of impacting investing from a financial advisor perspective.
Thanks for having me, Brett, Stephen, Svetlana. I love impact investing because it merges two things. And so this is just my own words, doing good while doing well for yourself, or, meshing together finance, or meshing together commerce and compassion. And that's right up my alley. My job is, or in the financial world, your job is to make money for individuals, but growing more and more people are fed up. They want to make a lasting impact. And the only way to do that is to merge the two. And so now we can live on purpose. We can make money, we can leave an inheritance for our kids, but also making the world a better place. So that's what, wow. And then also from a financial, and I'm going to put on my financial hat. Yep. So it's all about goals. So when we're building a portfolio, we talk about our goals, our dreams, and our values. And then we build our portfolio around that, or we decide where we want to be in the future. We step back to see where we're at now. So when we're building a portfolio around impact investing, what are my values? I want to make an impact. I want cleaner energy. I want to take care of women and children. Then I'm going to invest in companies that are actually doing well, actually producing sustainable results in terms of money. Because I think people have gotten away from, people are thinking that impact investing has to be philanthropy. It's not philanthropy only. It's really about making money and doing well for yourself. And it can be done. And it's happening now.
That's fantastic. So, Stephen, back to you for a second. So, you know this space really well. What are some predictions that you might have for this space this year?
Well, the predictions for me, I'm actually glad to see kind of the trends. As you know, most know I'm in the kind of the food, ending hunger in North America, which is my passion, and collaborating. But the hottest one right now in the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, obviously climate will always be number one because the corporations get around that. And that's always one. But the fastest growing one right now is diversity and inclusion. It's had over the last couple of years, it tends to double every 2 years now with the money being put into it. You're seeing companies like, Citibank and Bank of America, they're dropping billion-dollar funds to support the Black community, to support gender. It's really exciting to me because we know that there's a huge need for that space. And so I'm really optimistic about where that's going, because I think diversity and inclusion should be one of the top areas that we focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talk, and I think starting to make an impact on a lot of people in this space, and it's great to see the money supporting this. But I can tell you that diversity is the key. And again, I'm speaking a lot of credibility here. 30 years across 30 countries, very successful legacy teams. Every one of my teams was diverse. They might not have been that way when I started, but they were that way when I finished. And if you want to improve your performance, sign up for diversity, right? And your profits, and I'm talking bottom line profits in the long term, will be better if you focus on diversity. Absolutely. And that's because you can operate on the truth. And if you are not diverse, it will take you a lot longer to get to the truth, and you might not get there, right? So the more diverse, the better. And I think, and now you're hearing from, that's me speaking from a business perspective. You're hearing Stephen talking from an impact investment perspective. It's a great way to go. So that's a terrific information to hear. And Stephen, let's stick with you for a second. So briefly for the audience, let's get a little bit of terminology out of the way. So SDG, CSR, and ESG. Let's do a little school on that.
The old acronyms. Every industry, by the way, is filled with acronyms. And from the advertising world, and Helen was involved with me in that, we had to go to all the different industries and learn all the different acronyms. I mean, it's crazy. But this one's pretty simple. SDGs stands for Sustainable Development Goals. In 2015, of course, the United Nations got together with the member countries, and they created a white paper, basically saying, over the next 15 years, these are the things that we need to focus on, and they broke that down into 17 goals. The CSR has been around for a long time. Most know it stood for corporate social responsibility. It's pretty much gone now. It's kind of moving out and being replaced by ESG. So ESG, environment, social, governance. And that is a corporate term, of course, that they created to come up with something new, which they tend to do. But that's kind of generally speaking about everything that a company does, including, financial responsibility and governance and environmental and everything else. And that's, by the way, as you know, Brett, playing a major, major role in just not the impact investment space, but investment in general, as more and more people who are investing in publicly traded companies are looking for, what their ESG scores are, how they're monitoring that, and how the transparency is around that, which, by the way, is really good. So that's what those.
Yeah, and there's I was reading this morning in news across. I kind of follow people that are taking new assignments in Asia quite a bit. Many of them I worked with in the past, but more and more I'm seeing ESG heads, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's an actual title and it's real. And these are, just last week, DBS, biggest bank in Singapore, just appointed an ESG head. So, a lot of action in this space. Stephen, why do you think that impact investing is perhaps the fastest accelerating investment trend right now? Why do you think that is? Because there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah.
Bitcoin's out there. There's a lot of stuff out there, right?
Yeah.
Why impact? Yeah.
I think that the reality is as the younger generation, especially the tail end of the millennials and the Zeds now who are, 25 this year, I think they came along and decided based on everything that they'd heard and read, and that they wanted to make a positive impact. They were very emotional about that, and they wanted to work for companies that were doing good. And that kind of started it all, but it actually woke up the older generations, even the baby boomers, and starting to realize that, we've done a terrible job, with the challenges we face in our planet today. And they're all stepping up. They're seeing the young people talk about this, and they're saying, we need to do something about this too. We need to kind of fix the mistakes we made. And so more and more, I'm actually really encouraged by boomers that I talk to and the Zeds who are saying, yeah, we want to do something. We want to tell us how we can get involved and fix some of these serious problems. And I think that really stemmed from this younger generation who are adamant about it, as they are about some of the things that we talked about, Brett, about transparency around giving and things like that. So I think that's a great thing and a great shift in where we're going. And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we're gonna be able to do remarkable things based on that shift.
Absolutely, I think that's great. Denisha, back to you for a second. So if you look at impact investing through your lens, what would you say are the hottest topics in this category now? What are you hearing? Yeah.
So the hottest topics in impact investing are really the largest challenges that the world is facing. So I would say climate change, equity and empowerment, as well as I think and resource scarcity. And I'm just thinking about Stephen and his initiative. He'll talk about that. But when I thought of, the different things that are going on in the world, he is right on target. Resource scarcity, talking about food, clothing, clean water, sustainable agriculture. Those are the things that are the hot topics in impact investing now.
Yeah, I think that's really clear. I'm not surprised to hear any of that, but it's nice to kind of build this frame that we're doing in this short session today so that people can see different points of view on the context. And Stephen, could you give us a couple of examples of social impact efforts that create real value? So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could talk about all of our companies, but I won't. Instead, I'll give you an example of one that we're partnered with. And some of you might have heard about it, Four Oceans. 5 years ago, a couple of surfer dudes from Florida decided that they were a little bit tired of surfing and with all this plastic in the ocean. And so they put this for-profit social enterprise together, and they started taking the plastic out of the ocean. And what they did, and they had some great strategists help them with this model, is they created a way to recycle that plastic, make bracelets, which I happen to have one on right here. And they make these bracelets and they sell them, which supports the organization. And over the last 5-6 years, they built that up now to, they do about 50 million a year in sales. And over the last 5-6 years, they've taken 20 million pounds of plastic out of the oceans. So they're a partner of ours. We do some different things together, but great guys and a great company. And that's kind of one that I think every for-profit social enterprise should strive to emulate, because they're doing a great job.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Denisha, back to you. If you look at positive impact investing with your values, any more context would you like to add around that as people are kind of learning about this topic? Yep.
Yeah. we can't sustain what we're doing, the status quo. So there has to be change. And so it's really the right time to start making a change through, climate change and taking care of each other. I wanted to talk about the ESG, and from a financial hat. I want to drive home the point that indeed, yes, it's all about impact, all about making change, but you can actually make money doing it. And when you are, looking at impact investing, think about these three things. So for an investment or anything that you're looking to partake in, look at the mandate, the mandate of or the intention of making social environmental change. That's one thing. And then two, it has to be measurable and measured, reported. So yes, we're going to go into impact investing, but there has to be key indicators. There has to be a number to report. Am I really making an impact? And then the third is, am I making a return on my investment? So when you're thinking about investing, impact investing, intention, measurability, because I'm a numbers girl. You have to give me the proof, and then two, make money to achieve your own goals.
It's a great point, Denisha, and I love the way you frame that. And I'll just make my own comment around number two, around measurements, right? In anything in business, money included, we're talking about money here today as well, right? You do get what you measure. And if you don't define what you're going to measure, guess what? You'll probably get a whole lot of nothing. Or you might get lucky, but I don't believe in luck. I believe in planned luck. And so if you do what Denisha's saying around these 3 points, then you might have a lucky investment, but it'll be planned lucky, and that's the kind you want to get.
Absolutely.
I think that's great, Denisha. Thank you for that. And so, Stephen, back to you. So you have tons of experience in the marketing space, and why is partnering with social enterprises important in marketing today, would you say?
Yeah, I think probably more than anything else today, more and more companies are realizing that they have to have that emotional side to it. Of course, that's always been part of it, but now showing people that they're making a difference, they're doing good, that's what their company stands for. And to be honest, the younger generation look for that. They won't support companies that aren't doing good. We've seen that. We've seen some products that have, made a couple of mistakes, and all of a sudden sales have dropped significantly. So companies have to understand today that we're living in a different world. Younger generation today are, really looking for companies that they can align with, and doing good is just going to be part of the everyday norm, which, let's face it, if you're going to have anything that's, a norm, it should be doing good. So yeah, I'm really encouraged by that.
It is, when you order an iPhone or a Galaxy phone, whatever, when that box comes, right, that you expect an experience from the time that you receive the box, right? And hopefully that box is easy to open and the product or service is easy to use, right? And it's an expectation. It's a very high bar. Yeah. And I think, Stephen, what you just pointed out is very, very true, that the world has changed, and these things it's just an expectation, right? And it had better be part of the DNA, if firms and people ultimately are going to be successful in the future, because the buyers of this, right? They expect that, and they don't expect a defective product with a dead battery when they open the box,
Absolutely.
So yeah, very true as well. Denisha, back to you. How is impacting investing affecting the traditional investment world? Because obviously you've got all these asset classes and mutual funds, stocks, bonds, you name it, precious metals. And now these people are on here talking about impact investing. What's your view on that?
Yeah, we're being held to a higher standard. As you said, the expectation is higher. So what's happening is that these companies who have made money all their lives in whatever way, no, there is a filter, there's a screen of you're being measured against ESG or your impact. And then people are awake, are being awakened now to say, just like you said, I can choose now. I can choose to invest in, I don't know, I'm just talking. I can choose to invest in Zoom or as opposed to something else, because they are making impact. And so the bar is rising. And then also these investments, impact investing was only a part of the philanthropic world and very private wealth world, and there was no access. But now there is a wide open access to retail investors like us, and that's going to cause this astronomic growth now and 10 years and beyond.
Yeah, you just answered the next question I was going to ask you, which is where do you see it in the future? So I think that's pretty clear that this is more, another way to look at it. The other side of the coin is, it's much more than just what's going to be a 2 or 3, 4 year trend, right? That we're talking kind of a new landscape, maybe. Is that a good way to phrase it?
It's going to be table stake. It's here to stay. It's going to be, it's going to be so ingrained in society that every investor, every company, every government, will have this embedded in their way of doing business. And you know what? I think in the future, it won't be called impact investing. It'll be called investing. That's it.
Right. I think you're right. And this is, I think one common theme that you're hearing in this session is that this is global also. This isn't just the US and it isn't just Asia, Europe, right? Africa, there's a lot of activity going on in Africa now, even, right? I spent a lot of time in Southern Africa for a few years and in the finance industry as well. And so there's just a ton of activity worldwide in this space. So I agree with you, Denisha. I think that the word impact will probably fall off. Might take a couple of years, but it will. I think that's great. Thank you for that. Stephen, so you've got a quote here and I'm going to read it. I don't like to read things when I'm on these programs, but I'm going to read this one because it's a quote from you. I'm going to ask you to comment on it, but only together we can create change that matters. Today, it requires innovation, collaboration, transparency, positive disruption in creating new business models of sustainability. You made that quote, right?
Well, it sounds very familiar, but it sounds a little bit too intelligent for me too. But I'll take credit for it.
Okay, that's good. So I wanted to, just as a backdrop here, it's a little bit of a setup. So could you elaborate a little bit on the sustainability and the togetherness or collaboration part of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that I mentioned that quote when I was speaking somewhere about the whole idea of, the charity model is broken today. It's not, it doesn't offer those things, which is why one of the reasons it is. And so the models of the future are going to have to be created where you're using that creativity. Collaboration is obviously, for me, has always been king. I built up all my businesses in the past through collaboration. And sustainability, obviously everybody wants sustainability, but how do you create that? And so our model, for example, in every company we build, as you know, Brett, is everyone must win more than they put in. And that's a lovely quote, but like, how do you do that? Well, it's not so easy, but it certainly is when you have that at the kind of lifeblood of your company, and then you start to build these based on creativity, collaboration, transparency, which is also another big one. And so that's how we build all of our models, so that if we have 10 touch points or if we have 50 touch points, we have to make sure that they're winning more than they put in, because let's face it, as I was told one time, I was getting some advice as I was leaving the advertising company I was working for to start my own. And I said, can I have some advice? And he said, just make sure that you understand that, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And I know we've all heard that saying. But as I began walking out, I was thinking about it, and I turned around and I said to the president of the agency, why would anybody build a model with a weak link? And he started laughing and he said, you're going to do just fine. And we never have. We don't do that. We make sure everybody wins more than they put in. So there are no weak links, and that's sustainability. That's the only way we're really going to solve the problems that we've created, is to create models that offer those things and are very transparent, sustainable, and collaborative, so we can all win together.
I think that's fantastic. And, if everybody were doing what you talked about, and they're not, right? So that's the thing here. And, I don't want to get too technical in this session, but hopefully we're providing those of you watching this and those live and those of you that will be watching this on replay with enough of a backdrop where you can inquire further about more detail. We don't want to, swamp you with details today, but not everybody has this approach, right? And it's the same thing. I want to just divert for a second and talk about, my views on diversity, right? I don't know how to operate when it's not diverse, right? It's the only way that I know. And, if hopefully, and I do know it's just a matter of time before the world joins that view. I don't know when that'll be, right? But once you have something that you believe in and you go all in, like Stephen's talking about in this particular example of transparency, collaboration, we've talked about touched a lot of bases here. What Brett's talking about with diversity, these are models where everybody's very clear and there's no question as to what the objective is, right? Stephen's talking about, you put something in and you get more out of it, right? Okay. So that's something that's quite unique. You don't read, talk a lot about that nowadays, right? So I think that's really wonderful. Okay. Thank you, Denisha and Stephen. That's it for Brett grilling you. Now we're going to give some of those that have kindly tuned in live here, and thank you all for taking the time to tune in live. And I've got a few questions here, so we'll kind of end the session with those. And we've got Helen from France, who Stephen has a question directed at you, which is, and here's Helen's question: impact investing is proving there's money to be made through models of generosity. How do you convince those who believe that you have to take a more selfish approach to profitability?
Yeah, that's a really good one, because people have always kind of separated the two, and that's where, by the way, social enterprise came in about 8-9 years ago, was to try to bring the for-profit and nonprofit closer together. So I think the good news to that one, Helen, is that more and more companies are now, like for-profit social enterprise, that are talking about bringing those two together. It's not one or the other. I think that over time, we won't convince them. We'll educate them, of course, on how you can do this. And Europe has taken the lead on the whole impact investment space, 20 years ago. So I think that's going to really play a key role. But our job is just to educate people. We're raising funds right now, and we're educating them on how they participate in what they're doing, and we grow together. So that's really going to be how we solve that problem.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen. And Denisha, you're up now. So Strati from Toronto has a question for you. And Strati says, as someone from the traditional investment space, have you seen a shift in your clients looking to invest in do good opportunities?
Absolutely. So much so that I have enrolled to get my my designation as a responsible investing advisor. So it has significantly changed. I have clients now that are asking me, what are the ESG scores of this mutual fund, of this stock, right? And then, so how I have been building portfolios for these clients, we look at their goals, and of course, I have to do my homework and do this filter and look at their scorecard and build portfolios based on their ESG scores. And that's the core. And then around that, I would build in thematics. So if they are passionate about clean energy or about women and children, then I would put in these investments to build something large. I see an opportunity, and I'm going to go along that line. So you read you're in my head, Stratty.
Yeah, it's a great question, and what a great response, right? I mean, in summary, Denisha, thanks for that. It's, this is becoming part of the fabric, as I used to tell large teams of people, right? So it's not just, a piece of lint on my suit jacket. It's actually part of the fabric, right? And the color might be changing a bit, and it's different, right? And people expect it to be different. So I think that's a great question, great response. And okay, now we have somebody has a question for me, actually. So Brian from New York. So we really have a global audience, and we do have somebody from Australia on here as well. So I'm not going to call out names, but it's early in the morning there. So this is a global audience, and you've really tuned into, I think this audience today, by the way, is a typical indication of how widespread the interest is for impact investing, right? So Brian from New York has a question for Brett. With your experience in the Asian markets, how has impact investing been received? And in your opinion, is it a growth market? Well, I can tell you, I was in between WhatsApp, telephone, video. Last night, I'm currently in North America. Last night, I was in constant dialogue with a lot of people, ranging from Hong Kong, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, you name it, and talking about the Lunar New Year, right? And in the midst of all of those conversations, one person who worked on one of my private banking teams has recently taken a job in this space that we're talking about, okay, today. So she is very well connected to family offices, ultra high net worth individuals, and onshore, offshore banking. This person's in Singapore. She has recently taken a role in this particular space, right? And so it's very popular. It's very popular. I was talking to her amongst the clients, the wealthy clients in Asia, the Indonesian clients and Malaysian clients. They want to know what their dollars are going to do in addition to the return, right? So the same things we're talking about on here are happening over there as well. So hopefully that answers your question. In terms of, from a growth perspective, Asia will just knock the socks off of every other part of the world. End of story. We can go home. So I spent a big part of my career there, and I know a lot of the money in North America is coming from that part of the world as well. So in different vehicles as well. So watch that space. And if you want to know, a lot of people, maybe the US does lead in a lot of things, but if you want to sniff where the money's coming from in a lot of places, look to Asia. Okay. Hopefully that answered your question. Brian, thank you for that. We've got Sarah from Seattle has a question for you, Stephen, which is, all of your companies are for-profit in social enterprises. Do you see this as the future in the giving space?
Yeah, thank you for that, Sarah. And yes, I do. I've studied this space. In fact, one of the reasons I got into it is because I came out of retirement and decided I wanted to make a positive impact. And so as an ex-advertising guy, I did a lot of data. We went over everything. And that was when I came to the conclusion that we're not going to solve any of the problems with the current models we have. The charities, by the way, it's not that they're trying to do bad or anything like that, or they're embezzling money or whatever. The model's broken, period. The model's broken, and it just doesn't work. And so we wanted to create something. And so I believed that, and I still do, that for-profit is the only way to go. For-profit, because you can do other things. You have no restrictions. And for-profit will allow you to make sure everybody does win more than they put in. And it'll also allow you to collaborate. And that's one of the real key things in that. So yes, I do believe that. Thank you for that. Sarah, it's a great question. And I think that you'll see more and more even after a year after we launched was four oceans that I mentioned. And more are launching every day, which I think is encouraging.
Fantastic. Thanks. And Stephen, I'll stick with you. Rachel this is our last question, then we're going to need to wrap up the session. Rachel from Florida is asking Stephen, it's a two-part question. You've been quoted, you've been quoted like 2 minutes ago, right? The charity model is broken, yet your model is all around transparency, sustainability, and collaboration. So how do you collaborate with the 100-year-old charity model that's been doing the same thing since inception? And could you give us an example?
Yeah, that was one of our biggest concerns when we first launched. We knew that at the time the charities did not like us, and I was openly saying that the model is broken, which I still do, by the way, because it's not an opinion, it's a fact. Data will prove that. So the first model, which actually is launching this month, we're really excited about, purpose-driven travel. That was the first model I created, will be a flagship model, but this particular company is aimed at the charities. And so strategically, there's no way we could reach out to the charities and say, hey, do you want to partner with us? Because we just get click. They wouldn't even want to hear from us. So rather than that, strategically, what we've done is we created a model for the 78 million volunteers in North America. And we reached out to them and said, how would you like to raise more money for your charity of choice and receive free travel? Now, the strategic model of the strategy of that model, of course, is volunteers don't receive, rewards. They do that because it's a volunteer's position, and charities can't obviously reward them. But to hit them and offer them now something so they could, again, everybody win more than they put in, but not to take them away from what they were already doing, raising money for their charity of choice. So we just integrated one extra part in the whole process, feeding children. So by feeding children, this one group we did, which they were all raising $12,000 every year for their charity, having difficulty doing it. So we said, could you feed through our model, which is very transparent, everybody wins more than they put in, could you feed 500 children? And when they said we could, but we're not going to because we support our charity, then we told them by doing that, they could actually support their charity the same, if not more, because when we told them about the free travel, everybody said, can I feed more than 500 kids? So now we're starting to bring together collaborative. And, my wife is always saying that, we're stronger together for her organization. So true. But for everybody, we are stronger together. No one can really dispute that. So that's what we're doing. We're saying to charities, and by the end of this year, that model alone with 2,000 volunteers, each feeding 500, it's expected to feed 1 million kids a month, but also giving $2 for everyone, so 2 million a month back to charities, and then $6 million a year back to volunteers travel. So it's a collaborative model where, again, everybody wins more than they put in, but we can target the space. In this case, we wanted to start off with the volunteer charity world. So now together we can grow, and we can still give that money back to the charities. They can still do what they're doing, but now they can know, because they're feeding children and their volunteers are being rewarded, it's so much better. So there's an example.
What a wonderful example. So, well, that's great. Thank you, Stephen, and Denisha. Thank you as well. It was absolutely a joy to have your perspective of this, because you're right there where things are happening with individuals in the retail space, and I think that's really wonderful. And I have nothing but respect for both of you. And just to wrap up, I just say I'm going to. I don't have a script here, but I think what we've heard over the past 45 minutes is something, and special thanks to all of you for taking time out of your day, evening, early morning to tune into this, and for your interest, right? We're hearing about something that's relatively new, that's rapidly becoming kind of the DNA of the future landscape, right? I think Denisha phrased it the best, where it might be called impact investing today, but based on everything where this trend is going, probably the word impact will disappear over time, like taking training wheels off the bike, right? So this is here to stay. It's not a hot topic. It might be trending, but it's not a hot topic that's going to be here today, gone tomorrow. So pay attention to it, get educated on it. I mentioned at the beginning that I love to grow leaders that grow leaders. What's a leader? Okay. A leader is somebody that makes others feel good. Okay. You won't find that in a book anywhere. Okay. I don't care where you look, but that's how I define a leader. You've heard from Stephen and Denisha. They're both leaders. I know them both. Okay. And they make people feel comfortable. Denisha makes people feel comfortable. And by educating them, right, so that they can make an informed decision. She's not a salesperson where she's pushing things on people. She doesn't do that. She educates, and people can decide if they want to buy, right? She's an expert. Okay. That's the same thing that I did for 30 years, right? Same thing Stephen's done, right? Stephen is a marketing expert. So you've heard from people that are credible, that view the world as different. I mentioned that if something's not diverse, I don't know what to do other than make it diverse. I just don't know another way. And that's because I was a minority person in 29 other countries, right? 30, including the country that I'm from. So we're talking about mindset here, right? And whether you're looking at diversity, whether you're looking at impact investing, whether you're looking at educating and allowing people to purchase or pushing things on people, it's a mindset thing. So the thing about mindsets is that get close to people with mindsets that have an eye to the future, and you'll be able to learn quite a bit and hopefully participate if you can tolerate it from a risk perspective. And after getting all the information, ask a lot about it. I hope that you'll do some additional queries about impact investing and learn all that you can about it. And please let us know also if you'd like to have more of these sessions as well. And we're very happy to do that as well. So with that, I'm going to sign off now, and I wish everybody a terrific morning, noon, and night. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.